Ampire. Hey babies. Hey babies. Hey babies. Hey babies. Hi everyone. Hi everyone. Happy Tuesday. How we doing? Post football season. I need to get my life back in order, Callow.
I told you this. This is where you go through your, you go through your withdrawal, and then you become a person again.
It's this is gonna be a good 3-4 week at least slumber. This is hibernation, and then I will return to the rest of us. We'll talk about some other things besides football a little bit today. Would you like to tell everybody that they're all snowflakes for being upset about you're not getting the name Redskins back?
No,
sorry.
This was a sidebar we were having before the show where I just the one, it's a fact the name is not coming back. You and I are relaying that information. We are not throwing our opinion on that sentence alone.
I can't tell you the things they're going to do, but I can tell you that's not happening.
Right. And I was just
break it to you. It's just the truth. Yeah.
I was just venting to you, and the space that we work in, we're very public. We're on the radio. I'm on the radio every day on my show. I'm on with you, obviously. And the irrational anger that comes out when you just relay that information to people, it's like, I don't understand it. I don't understand it. It's a shoot the messenger situation, and it's just insane to me. So yeah, that's all.
Will you see that logo on the shirt again? Probably. Will you see it on the helmet? Probably not. Will the name ever be Redskins? No, it absolutely won't be. You're going to have to get over those things.
Right.
The other stuff that's coming down the road, whatever it may be, may feel like the old days. And I hope that suffices for you, because that's as far as we're going to get down this road. So the 3 to 5% of I have to have the name be Redskins, you're just going to have to get over it.
And I'll say this too. They launched some new Sean Taylor stuff on the back of one of the sweatshirts. It has the Redskins helmet on it. We are fully back that they're, throwing that on the merch, which I think they should. That should be a thing that you get, especially when you're honoring the older, the old players that did play under that name. I think that's perfectly fine. There's also just things being thrown out here now. People oh, well, no one goes to the game because the name wasn't Commanders. And I was like, guys, they sold out multiple games last year. The Falcons game was sold out. I was talking on a podcast yesterday about how the team does the you could relocate your season tickets. You can just go on and check out what's available. I'm telling you, there's not a lot of season tickets available for me to move my seats. Not that I was interested in that, but you click on a section and there's one seat left. I don't know what else you're holding on to here, guys. People are going to go to games next year, and it's not because of the name or in spite of the name either.
Yeah, it's because of the name Jaden Daniels.
Yes, correct. Yeah,
number 5. Name everybody
number
likes.
5.
Yeah, that's the name everybody likes. Meantime, I think this is happening. Week 1, Thursday Night Football. Philadelphia is going to be, because they won the Super Bowl, going to be the home team. Come on, they're picking us for that. That's. Because they're not playing Kansas City, so they don't get an opportunity at a rematch. This is happening, right? This is the one, you put this one in stone. This is happening. We're playing week 1 against them, I think.
This is my hot take. We were playing week 1 no matter what, because we're supposed to go to at Kansas City. So I thought if Kansas City won, we would actually play there too. I was calling it week 1 no matter what. You're getting the Jaden Daniels show, because you would have had both storylines, right? It's either a rematch in the NFC Championship game, which would be now, or you would have gotten what if they had made it to the Super Bowl, and then you would have had them playing the Chiefs. So I thought no matter what we were getting week 1. I will say, Detroit is on Philly's schedule too. So Lions-Philly sounds pretty juicy for a week 1 matchup too, but they had it a couple years ago. So I don't know if they'll give it to them again. I had called
this with crying Dan Campbell. They won't. Nope. Not this time, boys.
I had called this when the matchup came out. I thought we were going to be the first game of the year. They were pushing Jaden hard enough that I think he gets the week 1 treatment next year.
I joked with Mike Tirico the last time I saw him, which was the Atlanta game or the playoff game. And I said, you might as well buy a place down here, because between Lamar Jackson and Jaden Daniels, you're going to be coming here a lot over the next few years. A lot.
No, exactly right. And I mean, our home schedule, or our schedule in general, is nothing to scoff at either when it comes to prime time. I think they're going to max out on primetime games next year.
Yes.
I mean, it's the Chiefs. It's all the NFC East games, obviously. They play the Lions at home as well. So, yeah, like the matchups they play at Green Bay, they got some matchups that I think are going to be on prime time. I think they're going to max out next year.
I'm still holding out hope that we get that international game that's still up in the air. As you know, I'm dying for one of those. But if we're on like prime time like 5 times, which is going to happen, maybe we get skipped over on that one again too. So I don't know. We'll see.
We also remember they haven't really given like the prime matchups to overseas anymore either. Remember,
That's right.
they're not that great anymore. Like
you like Panthers Giants?
Exactly. So like I think it's
hey Germans, do you like Panthers Giants?
Right, exactly. So I'm just saying they don't exactly reserve the best games for those guys anymore.
Yeah, they're like the Germans will sing at anything. We don't care.
Yes, right. Exactly.
Right. And they're like, that's fine because West Ham's going to be showing up here next year to play a friendly.
Yeah.
You guys psyched?
Exactly. Yeah.
Let's see. So I was talking about this a little bit yesterday. And I'm looking at the Eagles and they have their list. They have 18 free agents and 15 of them kind of don't matter for their roster and for what they're building. So the reload is on. The big exception is going to be that I assume Kellen Moore is going to be named the head coach of the Saints in the next day or two. So they're going to have to get an offensive coordinator again. So that's a change, that's a real change. I'm assuming Fangio's coming back. Why wouldn't he? He's got this young defense. He's going to go full opposite Andy Reid. He's going the other side of the ball going, I can't lose with this group, and they're not going anywhere for a few years. So even if I felt like retiring, why would I? So he's going to stick around. So they got to get a new offensive coordinator. That's the big change. And I'll just show you the list. This is really it. The free agents of note that they have to deal with. Josh Sweat, who I think I said this yesterday when I was on Radio Row last week and I talked to a bunch of Philly people. All of them, it was just kind of a known thing that he's not coming back, that like they're just not going to spend the money on him and that he's going to go somewhere because someone's going to offer him a pretty good deal and they're just not going to allocate money to him. Their defense is kind of too good. Zach Bond, who was deal of the century a year ago and won't be this year, I assume is going to be re-signed by them unless he wants to play it out to free agency and see if he can get a big deal somewhere else, which I think he would be a valuable person now. But middle linebackers don't typically make a lot of money. So I'm going to assume he's coming back because, they don't underpay people. So I assume they'll sign him. Kenneth Gainwell's their backup running back. That's, they have Saquon, Gainwell's very good, but I guess if they can get him on a deal, he'll come back. And if not, then he'll go somewhere else. And Milton Williams is the fourth, who actually is a starter, plays, is pretty good. I would assume they'd like to keep him. It probably will depend on market value. But again, if all of those people leave, it's kind of no big deal. I don't think they all will. Sweat probably won't be back. Williams is 50-50. Gainwell's probably, do you want to stay or not? It's up to you. And Bond, they probably have to pay a little bit to keep him. And I assume that they will. Even if they all left, worst case scenario, they all left, it does not change an iota of they're the favorite going into next year.
No, everyone you just named, like those 4 people that you've listed, they can all be replaced in the draft. Will the, whoever they're with the 32nd overall pick be as good as Sweat? Probably not. But every single person that you named can be replaced, yes. Or they trade for someone like Myles Garrett or whatever they may do. Because look, here's the other thing too. They have such a stacked defense and such a stacked offense at this point with depth. I think Howie's going to throw the draft picks around here a little bit because he doesn't exactly need to get some young players in there. So that's the other side of all of this is you have a draft, but where are those players even going to play at this point if you look at their starters top to bottom? Well,
just think about Zach Bond. I'm sure they want to bring him back. He was outstanding for them. He was outrageously outstanding for them. I'm sure they want to bring him back. They've got the lowest pick. The lowest pick can be the best middle linebacker. That could be in the draft, so that's the problem here. They're kind of built to be really good for a couple of years now, at least until they have to make choices, until they have to pay Jalen Carter because he's the best interior defensive lineman. So you got to pay him $32 million a year. Then you have to make choices around him. The only real hope I think right now is Jalen Hurts somehow becomes average. That's the real hope. Otherwise, you're in trouble against these guys. least the next couple of years. And it makes the challenge for what AP is doing and Dan Quinn is doing even higher, because we're in the division with the best team and the best roster, and the best roster isn't changing very much unless they do it by choice. Like if they decide AJ Brown's a pain in the butt, we want to get rid of him. I don't know why they would do that, but like, let's just say they do that and it downgrades their receiving core a little bit. That would be by choice doing it, but I don't expect that to happen. And they're just set up. I mean, they're just so set up right now. So the challenge for our group is not just to rebuild and put together this type of team. You've got the behemoth in your division. And that's the real problem here that they have to deal with. And, you know, listen, they haven't like not wanted the challenge the whole time. They do. And in fact, they finally revealed at the end of the season that they were pissed when people were like, hey, good job, guys. And they're like, no, F you. Like, we're trying to win here. This is Battle of the Titans. I mean, it is possible, dependent on what, you know, AP does in the offseason. The two best teams in the NFC are playing each other in the same division. Like this, we could be all of the sudden what the NFC North was a year ago, where you got three teams with 12 plus wins, something like that.
I came to this conclusion on my show yesterday was you not only need the Eagle, you need to nail all of your decisions. You need the Eagles to trip up somewhere, because they haven't tripped up. Every single decision they made has been great. And I came to the conclusion yesterday on my show that basically you need to have what happened. And this is such a first world problem because we're seeing it only happen now, where like the Niners had so much talent that it's just constant drama with them. Right. But like, it's first world problem drama. It's, oh God, we have to pay Deebo, then pay Ayuk, then pay Trent Williams, then, you know, get McCaffrey. Like, oh no, we have to pay Purdy. Like, it's because they have an embarrassment of riches. And I would say the Eagles have more because the Niners were trading for a lot of those guys too. That's and right. Loaded up, right? Whereas like the Eagles did a little bit of both. It was free agent signings, and then they also have nailed their last couple of drafts, especially at the top pick. So like they still have 2 years before they even have to get into that drama. The fact that I have to make that comparison though is scary. That like the only reason the Niners are quote unquote, you know, like in a little bit of a mess is because they amassed so much top talent, you know? So that's the other scary part.
I mean, not that like they've been really, really close, not this year, but really, really close. That group is not going to win a Super Bowl. That's right. Pretty wild, you know, like considering how talented they are. It's not. That's pretty wild. They've run into the wrong team a couple of times too. So what about the Chiefs? Let's see. Do they make a big move off of this? They're the ones that scream T. Higgins to me. They're the ones. Like if he's available and he wants to play for a good team, he's pissed that the Bengals, you know, don't want to give him the money. Like, and they need a top tier receiver to help Mahomes out. They also have the majority of their defense back. The defense was very good this year. I think this is one of those you help out Pat a little bit. You go get him a real deal player, put out there with him again. So I expect off of this there to be from probably internally from people like Mahomes. You may not hear it publicly where he says, you're making this too hard on me. Go get somebody. So I expect them to do something off of this.
Well, and look at their wide receivers that are free agents. They're all free agents except for Worthy, Smith-Schuster, Hopkins.
They
Hollywood
should get
Brown.
Rashee Rice back. They should get him back, but he had a bad injury this year.
Yeah, Mecole Hardman, like all of them. They're all free agents this year. They're going to reset their entire wide receiver core. So I would say, too, like, watch out for them. Like, they're one that I actually circled. Like, watch out for them for, like, a De'Ami Brown. That like maybe they could be very good with them. You know what I mean?
I think they need to go make a statement and go get a big deal player, which is why I look at like T. Higgins and I go, they're the ones that probably are going to go suck it up and go get somebody like that and pay the price for it to get a number one in there for Mahomes again.
No, that's what I'm saying. They're going to have to sign 4. So like I think they're going to spend big money on a couple of them is what I'm thinking here too, because I think they're kind of done with this by committee stuff. I mean, it clearly backfired on them in the Super Bowl, and they didn't score enough points all year long anyways. They need to upgrade on top tier talent, not just have a group of guys again, I think is what needs to happen.
I think like Mahomes is a magic worker, and they had a crazy, crazy record, but their offense actually was mid this year. And I think that's just talent. Like they just don't have a lot of the top tier talent around him. And it's time that they give him that again. I think off of this, if I were him, that would be my complaint to them. Like, guys, like, you got to go get me a playmaker. And that's why I look at someone like Higgins and go, that makes sense to me. The other big question for them is this: is Travis Kelce going to retire? He was not very good this year. Like, he wasn't moving the same way that he normally does. I would, only he can answer this, and maybe he'll get asked it on his own podcast. Like, is your motivation dwindling a little bit here because you don't look like the same player? I saw somebody, I think it was Ryan Clark or somebody, went on ESPN this morning or yesterday and said something to the effect of, he's going to have to be okay with being, an average player. Can he be okay with that? And sometimes that's hard for, like, big time stars are going to be Hall of Fame players to come to terms with, I'm not that guy anymore, but I'm still effective. And, having run in this circle of being extraordinarily famous, you just don't know how that affects you and how you feel about life, and like, are these games not that motivating to you anymore because you've been in different, forums, and you've got a big media career now, and you're an actor, and you're in all these commercials, and you're traveling the world with this very, very famous pop superstar? Like, I don't know. I will say that I agree that he hasn't looked like the same player, and he is in his mid-30s, so it's not like he's like really young and he looks distracted. He's just an older player now who also might be really distracted. So I don't know. Like, I think if he's being honest, I think it's got to be 50-50. And actually, if I were the Chiefs, I would want to go to him and say, how committed are you to this now? Like, we love you. You're going in our Ring of Fame. You're putting on a gold jacket one day. We love you. You're a champion for us. But if you're not all in anymore on this because of, for whatever reasons, your age, the way your body feels, or you just have other interests, you got to tell us that, because we need to get somebody in here who wants to play with 15 and put all his chips on the table every single year. So he's got a tough decision to make, I think.
I mean, I don't even think it's any of that. I just think this is the old Father Time is undefeated. Like, I actually think
maybe,
like, he's been good. He was good the last couple of years. He started to dwindle last year, but he was really good in the playoffs last year.
He was really good in the playoffs. He had a really down year and then got really good in the playoffs. And this year, that didn't even happen.
Yeah. And so I just think this is a player that's getting old, because he's been dealing with doing the show, and he did the Taylor Swift, was dating Taylor Swift last year. Like, I actually don't think that's a big factor. He doesn't seem to be the type of player that, like, meshes that together, honestly. So I think this is just the old adage of he's getting older. He's not moving as well. I'll say this too, though, like, that Super Bowl was weird, had a couple drop passes. I know they weren't the best passes in the world, but he's a guy that should catch them if they hit his hands. So this is the other thing too, is like, he's just not performing either. I think this is just him getting older. I don't think there's an outside factor here. He seems like the type that is able to separate this pretty easily.
Maybe, maybe there is that other thing too. And it doesn't seem like, at least publicly, that his brother pressures him to do anything now that his brother is out. I've been talking about this for a couple of years. Like, that podcast is extremely valuable. That grouping of them together is extremely valuable. They could mimic the Manning brothers and have, programs together, wherever that may be, whether it's ESPN or somewhere else. Because Jason retired before Travis, Jason's media career started before Travis. I'll be blunt about this. I don't watch a ton of ESPN anymore outside of the games. Here and there I do. I've seen clips of this show that he's done. It ain't it. It ain't it. This is a real often, like, round peg, square hole situation where they try to make these people funny when they're not, particularly comedians, or they try to do these. And I give them credit for trying to do it, but it's hard to do. And Jason Kelce was a center in the NFL who happens to be somewhat entertaining on a podcast. It doesn't make him David Letterman, so it's going to be hard to do. I've seen some clips. I don't see any, like, digital run of it, so it must not be hitting the mark, really. Their magic is together, actually. I'm sure he's fine on all the pregame shows and all that stuff, but their magic is actually together. So I don't know that he's pressuring them to do it, but I would think, like, it would be better served for them to actually move forward together as the Kelce brothers than really in the media realm than what's going on right now, which I'm sure Jason's not complaining. He's making a ton of money from ESPN. They still have their podcast, but him as a solo artist, whether it's on a panel, you don't see anything really come out from that. And then him as this, makeshift late night host, you don't see any run of that. So, as Mr. Media Producer over here, I see them together as a package deal if you're going to do something that is very creative with the two of them together, because it's not really getting the bang for the buck with Jason alone. It's not a knock on him. It's just they're trying to make him into a comedian, and good luck with that. Like, I've seen a million people try to do this. Be funny in sports is hard to do, like really hard to do. So there might be a little bit of that too, that Travis is watching this and going, we need to do this together. It's a possibility.
I'll say this because I've consumed enough of their content. Jason's not pressuring him at all. There's 0% chance that's happening.
He's clearly not, though, what they want him to be as a solo artist, for sure. Not for whatever their salary that they're paying him. They expected him to walk in there and be another McAfee, and that's not happening right now.
Right, but that's also not who he is anyways. Like, this was ESPN. This was just a calculated decision I thought was always not the best one. What's funny is there's some clips from that show that I have seen that are good, but they're all football related. So you know how this works too. Like, anytime you get off that beaten path, good luck getting the content out there, and which is exactly what they're about to enter into right now. As far as like pressure for him to join, I don't think there's really any of that. Maybe Travis feels a little internal pressure of like, I need to start this up now if my football career is winding down. But I think. But at the same time, I just don't think they beat to the beat of their own drum on their own podcast. And Travis has been on TV before, even before he was like this famous before as well. I don't think there's as much of that as a factor. I think there's probably people knocking on the door, and maybe he's listening a little bit more, but I don't think there's any pressure between the two of them. That's all I'm getting.
Yeah. I would just say this, their podcast is red hot right now. Jason has already been plucked because he retired. He's doing other things. They seem to me to be better together than they do apart. Travis seems to have some acting chops. Like, if he wanted to go in that direction and do some of that stuff, Jason seems more not in that realm, but very good as a co-host because they're very different personalities. Like, I actually think they work very well. They work really well together. The problem is one's still playing football, and that is still playing football doesn't look like the same guy that he did a couple of years ago. And that easily could just be age, and it could partially be distraction. I'm just saying, from the Chiefs' point of view, I would want to have a serious conversation with him and just be like, one, how do you feel? How's your body feel? Can you continue doing this? And two, do you even really want to? Like, because there's a lot in front of you, and we need to know the answer to that, because we can't have the high-paid tight end on this team not be the productive part of the offense anymore. Like, and we're trying to win here, and we're trying to maximize Mahomes' window, and we love you, but like, you got to be all in. So I think there's a tough decision for him to make, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, once again, too, like, he could also just say, I'm getting paid enough money that I'm going to roll this back as well. Like, I mean, he's getting like 20 mil a year. It's maybe little under. It's a little under. Like, he very well could go, that's fine. I won't take as much of a beating, and I'll still collect my check. Like, I could see him doing that too.
Possible. Yeah, it's possible. All right, let me take a quick break. Bray wants to show ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. Missing out on a show that everyone is talking about is not an option for me. I'm constantly signing up for the streaming service or that one, and then a few months later I realize I've been paying for this service long after I actually finished that show. Getting Rocket Money was a game changer for me. They'll find your unwanted subscriptions. They'll even help you cancel them, so you never have to worry about them slipping through the cracks. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. See all of your subscriptions in one place and know exactly where your money is going. For ones you don't want anymore, Rocket Money can help you cancel them. Rocket Money's dashboard gives you a clear view of your expenses across all of your accounts. Easily create a personalized budget with custom categories to help you keep your spending on track. See your monthly spending trends in each category to know exactly where your money is going. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions wins and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/gameon today. That's rocketmoney.com/gameon. rocketmoney.com/gameon. All right, welcome back. We did not get to yesterday all of the people who are moving around now in the NFL come this offseason. Number one, and this comes as no surprise, Aaron Rodgers will not be back with the Jets now that they've changed the GM and the coach, and the owner clearly has soured on him. And that was a terrible 2-year experience that they had with him. One that really wasn't his fault. He tore his Achilles tendon. What are you going to do? Everything that happened from there was pure, I think when historians look back on this time, they will look at him as an avatar of everything that was wrong with how the media worked at the time. Or at least I hope everybody will look back on that and it doesn't become the norm because of the way that he conducted himself throughout the entire course of that entire year when he was injured. It really predates a lot of that, but this is where it was really, really, really out there for everybody to see when he couldn't play and how really he shouldn't have had a platform to talk about any of the things that he was talking about. But then they circled the wagons and he came back and he wasn't very good. And he missed a lot of time. And not only like we were talking about with Travis Kelce, I do wonder how much does he really want to be a football player anymore? Like there's a lot going on here with him. He made a movie about himself. He likes doing the McAfee interviews. There's a lot there that I think is beyond football for him. But I don't think he's going to go out like this. I do think he's going to sign with somebody else. And I do think there will be teams that will want him because as we lived forever, if you don't have a quarterback, you are perpetually looking for a quarterback and you will convince yourself of anything. So I saw some people say the betting favorite right now is Pittsburgh. I do not believe it will be that. I know he and Tomlin get along, but I do not believe that. Tomlin, I think, nearly for the first time in a while, really almost got fired. And I think the last thing he's going to do is bring in someone where if it doesn't go very well, is going to spiral on him, even if he likes Rodgers. So I don't buy Pittsburgh. I think they're going to re-sign Fields. That's what I think they're going to do. And they're not going to bring Rodgers in to compete with him. That's ridiculous. Tennessee's got the number one pick. No one thinks there's a quarterback worth the number one pick. And I'd argue they need a quarterback unless for some reason they're convincing themselves that Will Levis is the right guy. And I know, don't believe that at all.
My favorite quarterback. Favorite quarterback in the league.
So here's what I would say, and this is not knowing, this would be, remember, they got a new GM too, and it would be the first big move by the GM. It's a scary thing to do if you're going to do that. But here's what I would be thinking about if I'm them, because remember, a couple of years ago, he was talking about how he liked Tennessee for some reason. I don't remember why.
He has a house there. I'm pretty sure he has a house.
He has a house there.
Pretty sure.
Okay. If he goes there, it takes the pressure off of them to take a quarterback with the number one overall pick, which then gives them the option to either take the edge rusher from Penn State because he's the best player off the board, or try to get a haul and trade out because somebody thinks Cam Ward is the next it guy and gives them 3 first-round picks. And I would argue that is maybe the right thing to do. Take Rodgers out of it for a moment. You have to have a quarterback to pull this off. You can't do it to your fan base with Levis because they don't buy it. So you have to go in a different direction to even sell this. So that means Rodgers potentially to Tennessee. And I would buy that as a logical place for him to go. And then they auction off the number one overall pick and get a haul for it.
Or take the best player available too. I mean, take
the guy from Penn State who clearly could be the best, or take Travis Hunter, whoever you think it is the best player off the board.
Because I think there's a factor here for Tennessee as well. I'll get into the 2 other teams I think you need to throw in there. But what I'll also say with Tennessee too is they have a very winnable division. Like, the Texans were down last year. They're an unknown. I don't know what they're going to look like. They should be good enough to win that division, but the Texans weren't amazing last year. I called them frauds within the first 4 weeks of the season. And then they, of course, did get a playoff win, but then fell to Kansas City. But I think you do have to factor in a couple of those franchises that don't have quarterbacks and make the rash decisions. And there's 2 that pop up for me, at least. It's Vegas, because Vegas doesn't have a quarterback. I don't know if they're going to draft somebody. Brady's helping them with the search, and maybe Brady goes, roll the dice on this guy one time, and then we'll see what we can do next year.
We'll have to see what Pete Carroll thinks of something like that, because Pete Carroll's not a crazy person. They hired. Last week I was with a few people who are like Raiders people or Raiders fans people, and they were like down on the Carroll hiring, and I'm like, I don't know, man. That guy's a Hall of Fame coach. Like, I know, but he's going to stabilize you guys, and you'll be competitive with him for sure. Like, you just need to get a quarterback. You'll see.
So that's one. And the other two is your old boy Rocket Sausage out in Indianapolis. I think Irsay and Rodgers are cut off the same cloth, dude. Like, I think you need to put a % chance that Rodgers plays for the Colts, because that dude loves to sign every quarterback if it's not, his guy. And there was this whole, Anthony Richardson is the guy, whatever. Don't believe anything that owner says. They went after every quarterback with a name after Andrew Luck retired. Remember they had Phillip Rivers. Remember they had Wentz. Remember they had Matt Ryan. I mean, just add the Infinity Stone to the collection, Jim Irsay. Rodgers in a Colts uniform doesn't sound insane to me. So I do think that's a factor here. That's my off the board pick though on that one.
I want them to do a very special press conference for that.
I got to air that live. Like, I mean, that's gotta be a must watch TV, because
it frankly should be held in Peru is like where that should take place.
It should be Irsay and Rodgers on a podcast set,
yeah.
And they just let them talk. Talk. Because it's going to be crazy.
They're just smoking weed. Yeah, smoking weed and talking.
Yeah.
In the middle of it, Irsay picks up a guitar, starts playing music.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like Roger starts chanting in the middle of it.
See, like, I'm not crazy. That's a match kind of made in heaven. That's all.
Well, if you tell Irsay, if someone tells Irsay he might sign with Tennessee, it might even convince him more.
That's right. Exactly. And like I'm of the belief with that franchise, do not believe a word or a report that comes out there. When Schefter came out, when Richardson got shelved the last couple of weeks of the season, and it was like, oh, his season's over with, but the Colts have found their franchise quarterback. And I was like, what did he do this year to say that he was the franchise quarterback? Like, he had one of the worst completion percentages. They had to take him out for a couple weeks, remember, because he couldn't finish the game.
Yeah.
And he came out and said that. Like, I'm just saying that situation is not as solid as they want you to believe. And Irsay is the guy to screw those types of things up. That's all I'm getting at.
There's one other one, and I don't think this will happen. Probably because I don't think he would want to do it. And I also don't think that they would want to do it. But the Giants do need a quarterback.
Correct. Yeah, I thought about that too.
Him staying in New York, where the media criticism is just not going to go away. It's going to ramp up even more. I just can't see it. And then Shane and Daboll, if they're being honest, the fact that they're still there is frankly amazing after watching Saquon Barkley break the record for the most yards in NFL history in a single season and go win the Super Bowl and easily could have been the MVP. How they're still both there, like, is truly remarkable that the Maras convinced themselves that they had to do this again. And I can't imagine Shane walking into Mr. Mara's office and going, I think we should get Aaron Rodgers. And I can't think for a second that Rodgers wants to stay in the New York media market after this. So I put that at 3%, but it is 3% because they don't have a quarterback, which goes back to the original conversation of, if you don't have a quarterback, you'll convince yourself of anything. And there's somebody's going to convince themselves that they need him. Now, I also think it's 3% he does retire, but I don't think he's going to go out the way he went out. That's my opinion.
There's a one other scenario here that I think I'm just throwing out there, and this is like a 1%er, is if the Niners talks with Purdy break down and they want to trade him, and they sign a guy like Rodgers. Like, I think the trading Purdy and signing Darnold situation has like a 1% chance of happening. But like,
I would not give Brock Purdy $50 million a year.
I agree.
That's just me. I wouldn't
agree.
do that. I think there's the line. I'm at the line in the sand on this. I think he's a good player. I don't think he's that. If you're going to give him the Baker money, great.
Yeah.
Great. I would do that. But like, if he wants the Lamar money, I'm out. Like, he's not Lamar Jackson. This is where I'm out.
And look at how I keep referencing the York family, the owner being pissed that they were spending all that money last fall. And if you're him, do you want to hand over a big contract to Purdy if you're already putting Shanahan and Lynch on thin ice already? Like, I don't see it here. Like, I just don't see it working out here, because you're also then signing a quarterback that has worked for Shanahan, then whoever your next coach might be. And this is all hypothetical. I think it'd be crazy if they fired him, but you know how the NFL works. 2 years of this, he could be gone. Do you want to have your contract hitched with him for a bunch of years and then have to bring in a new head coach that wants to somehow make him work? I wouldn't. So I don't know. Like, I'm just putting the percent chance that they might have to be in the market for a 1-year deal or something.
The other one, I want to go back to the Giants for a second, because there's a lot of rumor milling about Matthew Stafford being traded there. And I actually buy the talk of that they would trade him, because it's been a couple of years of, is he going to retire? Is he not? He held them up in the summer for some more money, which is fine. That's his right to do it. They just walked from Cooper Kupp. Just totally walked from him. They're going to trade him. If that's come out already. You know, I always feel like if you don't have an answer at that position, you don't make a move like that. And the Rams backup is Jimmy Garoppolo. So who's their answer? And McVay's not going to go into the season with no quarterback. Maybe there's somebody they like in the draft, because the draft isn't going to be very high with quarterbacks, that they feel like they can get a lot lower, not unlike the Broncos did with Knicks, where they were like, we actually really like this guy. We don't feel like we have to spend a really high draft pick to get him. We're just going to get him where we get him. And that might be happening I don't know who that would be, but that might be happening this year with McVay. And I would trust McVay if he was like, there's somebody out there that's younger that I want to work with. Walking away from Kupp right now without a clear number 2 receiver on the team, you know, Demarcus Robinson's fine, but like, that a clear number 2 receiver, that's an interesting move. And then I believe this Stafford stuff a little bit. So New York apparently just hired his brother-in-law or something like that. So maybe that's the answer that New York's looking at to get an aging Matthew Stafford. My point about New York is they got to get somebody, because they're sitting in the division with the Super Bowl champ who looks unbeatable and the team with the next great quarterback. They're going to be non-competitive no matter what they do if they don't bring a real quarterback in there.
The problem there too, though, is like, what do you give up to get him in? Because your offensive line is still in shambles, essentially. And an older quarterback like that, you're asking for disaster for it to happen, right? Like, Daniel Jones was under duress all season long, as you know, for as many weeks as he was there. Like, that's where, like, yeah, I'm with you. They need to do something. But at the same time, like, what do you do when your offense is such a mess anyways? You have a number 1 wide receiver, at least. Like, you know, that's set for at least 4 more years. But other than that, there's just not a lot working there. I don't know what you give up to kind of, you know, Band-Aid over the offense. It's a hard thing to answer.
You know, the other thing too is, they're going to be in a no-win situation here, because if they get an aging Stafford, they can sell him as he's been pretty good, and he was just in the playoffs again, so it's not like he's not. But they know there's not a long run there. You're also punting on the draft, because the reality is you could get Shador, Cam Ward, or somebody in the top 5, most likely. And they're punting on those guys. So you're saying you don't think that those guys are that good, is what you're saying?
Right.
Do the fans prefer Cam Ward or Shador? Do you listen to them? What does Joe Shane's son think about this one? Because he's the one that told him to pick Jane Daniels.
Like, who's the better son in New York? Shane's son or Woody Johnson's kids?
I would love an interview with them. I would like them at the press conference with Rodgers and Rocket Sausages. I would like to hear their thoughts on everything.
And I would say Shane's son, half the age, better GM than the other kids. That's what I'm going to go with on that one. Because he said, go all in on Jaden. And he was right, actually. He
was totally right about that one. He looked the best out of everybody on that show.
That's right. He did. He
was the one who was like, he was nonchalantly like feet up on the couch going, I think his line was, you have one chance at this job. Why wouldn't you just take him?
Yeah. He was right. He was totally right. He's like
100% right.
Yeah. Like, I love that perspective from him. So yeah, like Joe Shane's kid better than Woody Johnson's kids. That's how it works in New York.
The other one, too, is this Deebo Samuel is truly available. So the Niners are going to move on from him. Listen, call me interested on him. Like he's got the whole package of what DQ and what they like. Competitor, plays as you know what off. Like he's tough as nails, man. And you can move him around, do all this sort of stuff. But I'll defer to AP number one on what's the price point on him at his point in this at this point in his career, and secondarily, like what kind of longevity do you get out of him? You know, like that. And AP would know this better because he was just there. How beat up is this guy? I mean, that's where because he's taken a lot of punishment for someone who plays receiver. He's taken a lot of punishment because of the way he plays. So I'd want to hear what Peters has to say about it, but like. All things being equal, call me interested on that one. I appreciate the way the guy plays. Very tough. I think he's got the mentality of the type of players they like here. We clearly need to upgrade at wide receiver. So I'm interested in that one.
I'm interested to see what the compensation is. I saw the trade, like if it happens, his cap hit is only like $17-18 million, but the Niners would then have $33 million of dead cap. So what that screams to me is you're going to have to probably give him a new deal, then get him to your team is what I think is the factor here. So that depends. Like what kind of deal is he looking for? What kind of compensation do the Niners want? I'll say this about Deebo. I'm with you about his attitude, but he's always on the injury report these days. Like this year, he was in and out of the lineup so much. And I think the best ability is availability. And if that's already kind of popping up there, I don't know what the compensation is because at the same time too, if he's going to be
paying him $25 million a year to play 9 games.
Correct. And that's where I think like they could run into a problem. So I'm with you. I'm interested, but I ultimately don't think he's the guy you go after. I will say this though. He's one of those guys that signed that deal a couple years ago. So it's him, it's Terry McLaurin, and it's DK all have 1 year left on their deal. Like does Seattle look at the compensation and go, we want to get something for DK before he walks or something like that. So I'm just saying the wide receiver market's really interesting right now in terms of who could be available via trade. Like Tyreek Hill, same thing, right? Like he kind of alluded to, he doesn't want to be a Dolphin anymore. I think the wide receiver market's going to be really interesting for what some of these guys get traded for and if there are extensions handed out for some of them too.
Let me tell you something. You give Jaden Daniels someone as fast as Tyreek Hill.
It'd be stupid. It'd be so stupid. Yeah.
That would be world-changing for them.
Right.
Right. All right, let me take a quick break. Bram watch the show. He's at 6:30, the Sports Capital. All right, welcome back. Let's talk about Luka, who made his debut last night for the Lakers, and the Mavericks fans who showed up, and some of them were thrown out because, as you might imagine, they're not happy about this trade, and I wouldn't be either. This is I went through this a few years ago when the Nationals prematurely traded Juan Soto, generational player. I didn't think they should have, and I called them my ex-girlfriend for a long time, and I didn't watch much of them, and I didn't go to many of their games, and because I'm a sucker, I went back to them, and they're my home team, and I'm never going to quit them, but I was pissed, and this would be, for me, if I was a Mavericks fan, a pretty interesting line in the sand of, I can't believe you traded this guy. He's 25 years old. And stop besmirching his reputation and telling me that he's some fat, out of shape dude because my eyes tell me otherwise. And he carried your asses all the way to the NBA Finals last year. So what the hell are you talking about? Like, oh, yeah, he missed some time. The dude played every minute of every game on one freaking leg last year to drag your sorry-ass team into the NBA Finals and take on a juggernaut, and they were at least competitive against them. And you're sitting there telling me he's fat and eats too many Oreos. Like, get out of here with that mess. I don't even want to hear it.
I don't think there's a comparison for the Soto trade. I think it's 50 times worse. Like in that sport,
if you have a guy like this, you can't trade him.
Correct. Like whereas in baseball, like I'll hear you out. One guy can't change the team. So like,
I was pissed because it's like, you know how good this guy is. He's 20-something years old. He was 3 years away from a contract. It was like, why are you doing this to me?
Sure. I think the asking of why is kind of the same. But for the sports, they're completely different because my argument for this one, too, is there's no negotiating. You just hand them the contract. Like, that's the best part about the NBA. the contract is the contract. You don't have to negotiate anything. And I still think the number one thing about this trade was the compensation didn't match. Like, some team would have traded you 10 first-round picks. Like, that's where I'm still baffled at this. And I don't know if you've gone down the road of conspiracy theories with this ownership group of why they traded him, but there are some juicy ones out there of like why they went ahead and did this. I don't know if you've read up on that.
Like,
but,
which parts of it?
That essentially they're pulling we want to downgrade the team so that if they don't give us this site for this new casino, we're going to threaten to move to Vegas. And in the NBA wouldn't say no to a team going to Vegas. So like,
well, okay. So I saw that. And this is a similar thing to Soto. When they did this, one of my theories was this was to clear the decks to sell the team, actually.
Sure, it wasn't moving the team, though. It was selling the team.
Not to move them, but it was to sell them.
Right.
Which the learners did at least dabble in, and who knows, they don't speak. May still be dabbling in. You don't even really know with them.
Yeah.
Right, okay. On the move to Vegas part of it, this is the Sands Corporation owns the team now, not Mark Cuban. It would make a lot of sense. The what they call the governor of the team now spoke to a reporter. He besmirched Luka, which was ridiculous. Tried to defend the trade, which is even more ridiculous, and then outwardly said bluntly, "We're not moving this team to Las Vegas. We're not doing that." And I will say this on that conspiracy theory because there's a lot of reasons to think they might. Dallas-Fort Worth is like a top 5 market and will be moving up because of population growth, and Vegas is 40. You'd be a crazy person to do that. But on the holding them hostage over getting the new arena/casino that they want, I will hear that part out, yes.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, too, though. Like, unfortunately, like, you and I both love hockey, but, like, last year we didn't talk enough about what happened with Arizona and Utah. Look at what the NHL did in that situation. Arizona, the Coyotes organization was sold to an organization in Utah, and they handed them all of the team assets, but let Arizona, that group, keep the team name and records. Like, they did an expansion by moving a team. Like, it's the weirdest thing in the world. We didn't talk enough about kind of how it went down. Like, and the NHL has said out loud, if they get a team back there, they get all of the branding and all of the records back. The NBA could do a similar thing and go, okay, you want to move this team to Vegas? Go ahead. And then they're going to say, well, guys, open up the checkbooks. Who wants to put the expansion Mavericks wherever you want to put them in Dallas? Mavericks. And it becomes kind of the Browns situation, right? Where like the new Browns came along. So I don't put it past them to do this just to get the team in Vegas. And then the second that new Dallas team comes on board, all of a sudden those fans are back on board. So I'm just saying.
To all the people who are screaming, fire this GM, the ownership wanted this to happen.
Yes.
Don't be stupid.
100%.
There's no GM that walks into the owner's office and goes, by the way, I just traded Luka Doncic.
Yeah, right.
Like, that doesn't happen. So the ownership wanted him to do this for whatever reasons they are. And it could simply be, I think he eats too many Snickers bars and I don't want to give him $375 million. To which I would say to them, he's the best player in the NBA. You people are idiots. You shouldn't own an NBA team. But it might be something else.
The other thing here too, by the way, I don't know. Did you know Bill Gates is doing like a book tour for like one of his books that I don't know if he did like a biography or something like that.
I saw him do a panel with Mark Cuban and Cuban pushed back on it. I saw that.
Well, and Cuban,
I said that the second happened. I go, if Mark Cuban was still the owner of the team, this never would have happened.
And Cuban actually, it was a really funny back and forth. He was like, so if you sold, if you sold part of Windows and they went ahead and traded Windows 14 for Windows 10, but you weren't involved in the decision making, what would you do in that situation? Just hypothetically. And I was like, oh, even Cuban is like, I'm not keeping my mouth shut on this one.
That's the other part of it. Like, okay, but this is the other part of it. Okay, so you wanted to trade him. Why did you take that deal?
Right.
It's a preposterously bad deal.
which is why those conspiracy theories of wanting to move the team should be running rampant. Like, there's more to it than that. Like, don't tell me you're going to be a defensive team in the modern NBA in 2025. No way. No chance.
The last thing on this, too, the fight between the reporters there over whether the GM is actually receiving real threats or not from Mavericks fans. And one reporter actually called the police to find out, are they getting threats? And they said no. And the other reporter who reported that he was receiving threats got really pissed at the reporter for doing the journalism. You all have lost your minds down there.
Yeah, I mean,
this is the worst of sports. When you trade someone like that away, there really is no good reason for it.
Correct. No, exactly right. And I mean, the conspiracy theory, the other layer of the conspiracy theory too, is like, oh, of course it happened to the Lakers. How did that happen?
Right.
Like, who's pulling the strings there? That if, we wanted to tank this franchise to possibly move them. Well, how about we just put the most prestigious franchise in the NBA that they happen to get the 25-year-old superstar?
Right.
Like, just that's. I get it why everyone's running wild with it.
We're doing the whole rebuild thing, but if you called us and said we could get Luka, I would have said, great, forget that whole rebuild thing. We'll take him.
Winger would pick up the phone and go, what don't you want?
What? Right.
Tell
Pick
me
anything. What do you
everything.
like here? Pick anything.
You want first-round picks for the next 10 years? You want all of the roster?
All of it.
Go ahead. We'll figure it out.
You like Star? You take Star.
Take them.
All of it.
Take them.
All right, everybody. Talk to you tomorrow. Very much the show. ESPN 630 Sports Capital.